To establish a company and to do it well, the first thing you need to do is to make a good product.
All right, I apologize in advance. I'm going to be kind of reading from notes because it's been a day or so since I actually saw the movies, and want to make sure that my points are all still valid. I slept on it. I think I agree with it, but anyway, here we go. I guess first off, I'll review Terminator Dark Fate. First off, I just want to say I think it was surprisingly good. There's, the trailers have been just bombarding every single movie I've seen for the past several months, and it's kind of made it look really stupid. And I honestly was going into it with no real, positive assumption for it at all. I think that marketing has been kind of a failure for it. I think it's another one of those movies that's coming out at a time it probably shouldn't, because it's going to automatically make it do worse than it could do. In comparison to other movies that are out at the time, I also think that I'm, again, ahead of time, before I'm coming from this, or at this from the perspective of somebody who never saw 4 or 5, Salvation or Genesis or whatever. The last one I saw was 3, about a year after it came out. So it's been a long time since I've watched a Terminator movie. And this one was surprisingly good. I guess I'll start with the awkward, obvious kind of elephant in the room. At least from marketing's perspective and how it looks in trailers and stuff like that, it kind of looks like it's a female-led remake of 2, which again, it's been a long time since I've seen 2. Because I hate me all you want, but I never considered it to be this amazing movie like everybody else has for years and years and years. Maybe back when it came out it was awesome. I get that. In fact, I referenced it in a Grand Theft Auto San Andreas video because something reminded me of it. It's like Terminator 2, basically. But at the end of the day, I always preferred the first movie because it was darker, grittier, and felt more like a horror movie. Kind of like how Alien is like a horror movie, whereas everybody says Aliens is kind of more action-y. Although my best friend, who I was just talking to about the fact that this looks like Terminator 2, basically, he was just saying that he thinks Aliens is actually kind of more horror than people give it credit for. I wouldn't know. I haven't seen it. I need to watch that too. But anyway, the point is, I always liked the first one better, so I don't hold 2 to this ridiculously high standard that everybody else does, because I saw it way after the technology was already outdated and stuff. I probably saw it in the early 2000s as opposed to in the 90s when it came out. So I just never thought it was as amazing as people acted like. I'm not saying it's not good. It's good, but I just always preferred the first one because it was darker. It made Arnold a villain, which was kind of cool. Stuff like that. So coming at it from that perspective, from what I do remember, I would say this is kind of like a Terminator 2.5 rather than an outright remake. It's kind of like a sequel, a direct sequel, but from an alternate timeline, sort of, in a way. Even though I think it becomes the main timeline by the end, it's the way it starts out seems as if it's an alternate take. Since there have been 3 through 5, which again, I haven't seen 4 and 5, but from what I've gathered, I think that the way it plays out makes it seem like this is kind of set to the side in a way from those. I feel like it really held my attention the whole way through, which is surprising since, again, I kind of went into it thinking, oh, this is going to be bad. For example, I just saw Godzilla 2014 about a couple or a few weeks ago, and I'm gonna be honest, as much as I love the idea of a Godzilla movie, for some reason that movie had even with like Bryan Cranston and Aaron Johnson and good people in it, it kind of like my attention was fading in and out.
You didn't see that coming.
I don't know why. It's like in theory I should love that, being somebody that loves Japanese culture and like anime and kaiju and stuff like that. You would think I would just be like, oh my god, this is amazing, but for some reason it just felt kind of dull. So I was worried I was going to kind of have a similar feeling going into Terminator Dark Fate, and I didn't. I was the only person in the theater, which was awesome. It's like I could just kind of spread out and just kind of, you know, cough if I needed to cough, all that good stuff. So I was relaxed and I didn't lose interest once. Like I was always like keyed in and always kind of paying close attention to what was going on in the movie. It was, I don't know, it just felt like it was paced and executed in a way that made it easy to keep focused, which is good for a sci-fi action movie that's on its 6th movie. You know, I guess it's been 3 or 4 decades now that it's made a movie in, roughly. I feel like because the whole thing everybody was talking about leading into the movie was that, oh, it's an all-female thing, it's going to be as shitty as Ghostbusters supposedly was. Although I haven't seen that, I really don't want to see that. That's one movie that I'm like kind of having a hard limit to, of like not wanting to budge on watching that, because I think it's probably terrible, and I thought it was terrible looking since the original trailer. It wasn't about it being women, it just didn't look funny at all, which bugged me. So I kind of was worried, because everybody had hyped this up to be another all-female remake, kind of like how there was Ocean's 8, or I think there was something else, but I can't think of what it was off the top of my head besides those two. But I feel like the actresses were actually kind of believably badass, like in a non-Mary Sue kind of, like, it's not like Rey in Star Wars. It felt like there is a real reason for why these women all are like executing and like operating and acting on a high level. Like they have a backstory for the one that's like basically a cyborg or whatever, or cybernetic kind of character. She has like augments and stuff, and has been in war and stuff, so it makes sense why she would be this intense fighter and stuff. And then you obviously have Sarah Connor, who has been through the shit with the Terminators for decades now, so it's like obviously she would be good. And then the main character doesn't really do a whole lot to like be actively engaged in the fights, but she's like kind of like their at times inspiration, which is like, it makes sense. You'll, if you see the movie, you'll understand why she would kind of be the one that's like wanting to fight back and stuff. It makes sense logically in the movie. So there's nothing that's fake or like forced feeling there. Like it just makes sense within the plot of the story why all the characters are the way they are. Arnold was in it, as the trailers show. I think it was... they made it out to seem like it was going to be a good send-off for him, like it might be his last movie with the franchise. And if so, I think they did it pretty well. I feel like his acting was... It was strange because it was like robotic, but I guess it was supposed to be robotic because he's kind of, you know, as the trailer makes out, he's a Terminator, so he should be a little robotic.
I am a machine.
So I don't know if that was the point, but there were times where it felt a little weird, but there were also like emotional times with him. So that was kind of cool too. It was nice to see him in a movie again, because I haven't seen him in a movie in a long time, I guess since like Expendables 2 or whatever. Which I know there have been more movies with him since. I just haven't seen any since then with him in it. So it's kind of nice to see him on the screen again. there was like a scene where it was in the past, which is why I say it was kind of like 2.5. There was a scene where basically it was like kind of after Terminator 2, so they had to like either CG or make up all of the actors and actresses to kind of look like, you know, look like Edward Furlong and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I don't know the actress's name off the top of my head that plays Sarah Connor, but anyway, the three of them, and it looked pretty convincing. I mean, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was as good as like the CG remakes of characters in Star Wars and stuff, where they had to like make Tarkin and Leia and people like that at times for certain movies, but it was pretty good. It felt like it was a proper farewell to the series, even though some kind of throwawayish lines tease that it could be a sequel, or I mean, not a sequel, teases that there could be sequels going forward. Like, you know, the characters have to act like they're getting prepared for anything at the end of the movie, but at the same, in this kind of series, but at the same time, it felt like a good point for them to stop. It doesn't feel like they're gonna, like, the way it ends makes me feel like they're not gonna milk it dry completely, even though it already might seem that way now. It just seems like a good stepping off point for them all to kind of let it rest, at least for a while, and then maybe 20 years down the road reboot it instead of doing like a sequel or something, because I feel like it's a little tired at this point. I think that was the whole point, was Dark Fate. It kind of feels conclusive in a title, in the way it's shot and portrayed in the trailer and in the movie itself. So I feel like it might be a good time to kind of let it die down and just sit, especially with the way the story ran its course. It just seems like that's what they're going to do. It wasn't amazing, but it was pretty good. I would say I would give it like a 6.5 to 7 out of 10, roughly. For what it was very enjoyable. And as somebody that missed the last two movies, I was surprised that I was able to enjoy it as much as I did. It didn't, I don't know, because I haven't seen those movies to know if there's anything I missed, but it felt very like close to 1 and 2, which is I think what it needed to be. It's nowhere near as good as 1 and 2. I think those are classics. I think this is going to be a movie that kind of passes with time, but I think it was still solid. As for other stuff, I wanted to mention, I like talking about trailers and stuff that happened before or after the movies. I'm kind of just going to focus on trailers because, I've had a day to sleep off anything that happened really before or after. But for trailers, I noticed there was a kind of a behind the scenes trailer for this movie called 1917 that's coming out about these two brothers it's really a guy, just two guys that are trying to cross enemy lines in World War I to deliver a message, basically to stop people from going into a trap. One of them is delivering a message to their brother, basically, is what I understood from another trailer I saw for it. There's just a movie trailer. But this is the one that kind of got me wanting to see it really badly. The director or producer, whoever it was explaining that they basically shot the whole thing in just a continuous, not like a single continuous shot, but it's like there weren't scenes. They, if they had to stop or take a break or something, they would always wait until, because it's outdoor mostly, because it's World War I, so it's like in the trenches and stuff. They would always wait for the lighting outside to be similar enough to where they could smoothly transition in. They would stand around waiting for weather to clear up or stuff like that, and then just go right into it and have a singular camera kind of following on carts, cranes, wire lines, and stuff like that. I'm losing my terminology here, but it just looked really cool. I've never seen a movie really shot that way, and it's always impressive when people can do things in basically solid takes instead of like having to edit the shit out of something. I try to always do that for the most part in these reviews, other than cutting out little brief pauses and things like that to save on time. But I really want to see that when it comes out, just because it looks very well done and very uniquely done. It's, something that's basically never been done before, and that's appealing. There's also the trailer for Midway. I've seen it before. Well, not the movie, but the trailer. And it looked really good before. But now, after just having seen it a few times, I'm like, I really want to see it too. It looks like a pretty big ensemble cast and just looks really intense. Granted, I've never seen the original, and I kind of would like to at some point, because my dad always talks about how it's like one of the best war movies ever made. But this looks really, really dramatic and really intense and really cool. That's about World War II, post Pearl Harbor, all that good stuff. For those who don't know history, but I want to see that as well. Strangely, not as much as 1917, just because now that I know there's that whole layer of added, like, cool behind the scenes technological stuff going on, I really just have to see it just to see how it's executed and stuff. There was a trailer for Ford versus Ferrari, which is about when the Ford GT40, I think it was, or whatever, was built to basically beat Ferrari at Le Mans, which I've been interested in that story since watching Top Gear years and years and years ago. Because that's just really cool to me that, you know, Ferrari, which is this company that's known for winning those crazy European, like, I guess they're sort of kind of cross-country races or whatever. I don't know, or a series of races, I guess. That they eventually got to a point where we were able to beat them effectively with Ford, which is a company that at the time was, you know, known for making the original production line car and also, I guess, Mustangs, but not anything like super crazy or anything. Like, it wasn't like we weren't known as this performance churn out kind of country until that car, and we beat them for I think a few years at Le Mans, and it was like this huge deal. Obviously, it's way before my time, so I don't know anything really about it other than the fact that I've driven the remake GT cars in games all these years and always thought that they were really cool. But I like movies that are kind of set before I existed. I mean, I like movies that are set now too, but I like seeing things that I wasn't around to see portrayed and, like, I don't know, just directed out and stuff. So I really want to see that. It looks great. It has Matt Damon, Christian Bale, and John Bernthal, so it should be a good cast. And it just looks really, you know, dramatic and kind of funny at times. So I think it'll be a good movie. But yeah, I guess that's all for what I remembered from Terminator Dark Fate. I would recommend going see it if you have interest in the series. If you're just a casual fan that hasn't really watched in a long time, it still works. But I do think that it's kind of important that you at least see Terminator 1 and 2 before seeing this one. Anyway, that's all for this one. I'll see you in the next video where I review the current war, which I'm excited to talk about that one too. So, see you in a bit. Bye.